In this video, we're going to look at how to export data from ChemPoint to ChemStat. In this case, I'm using ChemPoint Professional, but the procedure is very similar for ChemPoint Standard. However, ChemPoint Professional has a few other options that ChemPoint Standard does not. Here I have some example data, and I have selected the Wayne County landfill as an example. One of the things I want to do first is go to the Dates and Locations view and look at my sampling locations and make sure that I have specified the correct gradient for all of the sampling locations. From the right-click menu, I can go to Statistics, and I can set statistics groups, up to 4 statistics groups for each sampling location, or I can exclude them from statistics. On the sampling dates, I can also set statistics groups or exclude them from statistics. The reason you might want to do this for locations is if you have multiple monitored zones. You can set each zone to an individual statistics group, and you will be able to export them separately for separate statistical analysis. This is a feature only available in ChemPoint Professional. Also, you'll note that you can specify a successor for a monitoring well. If you have a well that has been abandoned and a new one has replaced it, you can specify the successor, and when you export the data to ChemStat, all of the data from the old well will be transferred to the new well. To export my data, I go to the File menu, I select Export and ChemStat. I specify the file name where I want to export the data. For compliance wells and background wells, I can specify date ranges, and only the data within those date ranges will be exported. For the sampling date, you have two options. This is for ChemPoint Professional only. I can use the date of actual sample collection, or I can use an event date. You typically want to use the event date. This is for situations where you have a single date for the sampling event, but you've collected data over multiple days. It's typically better to use a single date for the sampling event in your statistics because it keeps the graphs and the reports simpler. I also have an option to convert all of the analyses to parts per billion. You typically want to do this because, first of all, you want to keep your statistical analysis data in consistent units. The second reason is if you're going to do a log transformation, you don't want measurements that are less than 1 because that will create a negative value and that will screw up your statistics. So converting to parts per billion is typically the best thing to do. The only reason you don't want to do that is if you are going to end up with a very large number and you don't think it's going to display very well. In ChemPoint Professional only, you have different options for how you want to specify the detection limit because multiple detection limits are supported. In this case, I'm going to leave the default. Now I just click the Export button. Now in ChemStat, I go to File, New Project, and select ChemStat Text File. I select the file that I just created in ChemPoint. I have a few other options here to import my data. I'm going to leave the defaults. Here I get a preview of the data just to make sure everything is lined up correctly. And now I can import my data. You'll have the option to do a fully automatic analysis of your data. In this case, I am not interested in that. One thing to note is my MW1 has now been replaced with MW1A, the successor well. I can scroll down through this view to MW1A and see all of my data. You also have the option to adjust your well gradients if you didn't do that correctly in ChemPoint. Here, I can set the gradients for the different wells. At this point, you're ready to proceed with your statistical analysis.